You're listening to the Life Coaching Secrets Podcast, episode number 94. Did you know that life coaches are needed now more than ever? I'm Frank Macri, founder of Thriving Coach Academy. I've trained over 1,000 coaches and helped them launch their own successful coaching businesses. If you want to make an incredible income and impact as a coach and have a lot of fun doing it, I'll show you exactly how to get it done. This is Life Coaching Secrets. What's up, coaches? In this episode, I'm going to talk about how to be inclusive as a life coach. And this is a really exciting topic that I've been wanting to share for a while. Inclusion is very important to me. It's very important to the community within Thriving Coach Academy. So I wanted to share how it is you can make sure you're being inclusive as an entrepreneur, as you grow your business, and also as you are supporting clients of various different backgrounds. So this podcast is part of a series that is called the 12 Days of Podcasts, where I am releasing a dozen episodes in the month of December, all geared towards you becoming successful as a life coach. So make sure you do hit the subscribe button on this podcast to make sure you don't miss a single one and that you get access to all episodes the second they are released. I figure that since the holiday season is upon us, there will be many of you who will have some downtime, you'll be traveling, or maybe you'll just want a break from all of the holiday chaos. And I hope this podcast provides you with some encouragement and maybe even with some lighter energy than what you might be experiencing during what many would consider this to be a pretty wild time. So let's talk about inclusion. Now, inclusion is something that has impacted me personally because there have been times in my own life where I haven't felt very included, I haven't felt very welcomed, and I also felt like I didn't really belong in some different environments and communities. A lot of that was growing up knowing that there was something different about me. I realized that I was gay when I was around a teenager, and I didn't really have many people to talk with about that, and I didn't feel comfortable talking with many people about that. So I ended up wearing a mask to hide myself from the world, and I really shrunk down as a person because I was afraid of judgment, and I was afraid of really being excluded. So I forced myself to fit in some different situations, mostly just by blending in and by not ruffling any feathers, just going through the motions, keeping the peace. That was my way of coping, feeling like I just didn't belong in many different environments that I was a part of. So it is hard when you just want to simply feel like you belong and you don't, because there's things that are different about you and you don't feel like people understand you. And it could be exhausting to try to have people understand things about you when they haven't lived that experience themselves and they don't know what it's like. And in no way is this speaking like a victim. It's just about having an awareness that everyone goes through different experiences in your life. And I think that's one of the core things I want to emphasize before I go into more strategies, that, when you meet people from different backgrounds and they've gone through different struggles, different from you, people aren't always asking for you to pity them or feel bad for them. It's just about having, making sure that they are just okay, knowing that they are okay to exist as they are, and that they're welcomed, and that they are included, and that they are wanted as well. So being a part of the coaching industry has really allowed me to feel so much more at home and at peace with myself, because I've been able to work through so many of my own inner conflict about who I am and how I'm different from so many other people. And also the coaching industry tends to be more inclusive. I do see some examples of ways that coaches can be more inclusive and other coach training programs can be more inclusive. For example, when I was a student, when I went through a coach training program, part of that was they had us go through these very long, exhausting 30-hour weekend trainings that where we were crammed with so much information. And I noticed that all the other coaches most of the other coaches in that space were middle-aged Caucasian women. And there's nothing wrong with being a middle-aged Caucasian woman at all, but I noticed that there was a lack of diversity. There was just not many different walks of life that was in the classroom. And when I created Thriving Coach Academy, I wanted to create an environment where we can attract people of all different backgrounds, because I believe that the more diverse of a community we have, the better coach you're going to be, because you'll learn how to coach people of all different backgrounds. So when you're out coaching people beyond our community, you are more equipped to show up at the best possible level as a coach. So I'm really proud to share that within Thriving Coach Academy, over 50% of our student body identifies as either LGBTQ or BIPOC. And if you're not sure what all those letters mean, LGBTQ means lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and BIPOC, which is BIPOC, stands for Black, Indigenous, Person of Color. So I'm very happy that when you look into our virtual classroom and you see all the faces, you see so many different types of people, and I think that's beautiful. It makes our classroom fun, it makes it interesting, and it allows people to connect with those that they maybe never would have connected in if they just, stay within their typical bubble or their typical social circle. So inclusion is very important. Now, I do want to distinguish between the words diversity and inclusion. So I once heard this distinction that I want to share with you that I think makes it super clear. Diversity is just when you are invited to the party. Okay, so it's like, oh, look, there's so many different people here. It's diverse. But inclusion is when you're invited onto the dance floor. So diversity is being invited to the party. Inclusion is when you are invited onto the dance floor. And as a coach, you want to prioritize inclusion in your practice, okay? Whether you're doing one-on-one coaching or group coaching, or even as a coach, you might do a lot of public speaking and workshops. So it's very important you understand and you are having an awareness of inclusion and making sure people feel included. Okay, making sure that people feel like they belong, that they're wanted, that they don't have to wear the mask. That mask I talk about that I experienced for so many years of my life. If you're someone listening to this and you've ever felt like you needed to wear a mask in order to fit in, you know how exhausting and draining that could be. And you know how it can really take away at you when you just want to live and express yourself as you are and not feel like you have to shape shift for other people's approval. So with all of that in mind, I want to share with you some different ways that you can be inclusive as a life coach. Now, of course, I'm just going to scratch the surface in this episode. There's so much more I could cover. One of the cool benefits of being in Thriving Coach Academy is that we give, for no additional cost, we give a training, a DEI training, diversity, equity, and inclusion. We give a DEI training specifically for coaches. Okay, so it's a DEI training that all coaches really need to have. So it will help posture you in the best possible way so you know how to really honor inclusion in your work as a coach and in the way you market yourself as a coach and grow your business as a coach. So that's one of the cool benefits you get as a student inside Thriving Coach Academy. So when it comes to inclusion, one of the main ways that you want to be inclusive as a coach is being aware of your own stereotypes or biases that you may have about people of different walks of life. Okay, so there are people out there who might have a different race from you. They might have a different gender, sexual orientation. They might believe in a different religion. So you may have different biases and stereotypes. Now listen, we're all human, and it's something that our brain does, is we create these shortcuts in our brain, and these shortcuts are what end up becoming stereotypes or biases. And it's not that it's inherently wrong that your brain might come up with some kind of a judgment that you might make, but it is wrong to not look at that and examine it and start to correct it, because it is it is not going to be helpful for you to have these biases and assumptions as a coach. I remember one time in college, I'd met a bunch of people, and this one young woman that I met, she said, "Oh my gosh, you're gay. You're going to be my new gay best friend." And I felt like immediately I wasn't really seen as a person. I was just seen as a gay best friend. And this is an experience that many people go through, where it's called being tokenized. And it's kind of like you become known for just one of your labels. You become the gay guy or the black person or whatever it might be. So you want to be aware that you're not tokenizing your clients or really anyone in your life. It's something to look at even just beyond your coaching practice, but your life as a whole, like where you might be tokenizing someone, where you are just judging them based off of one way they identify. You're making assumptions about them. You are having stereotypes about who they are. Now, a lot of our stereotypes and our biases are not in our awareness. So there are different resources online that you can look at to check yourself and notice what your implicit biases might be. So if you Google implicit bias test or implicit association test, you'll find that there are several different free tests that you can take to help you notice where you might have a little bit of that implicit bias about certain types of people. So notice your stereotypes, notice your bias, and see what you can do to release yourself from those, so you can really see the person as a whole person and not just the color of their skin or their sexual orientation or their religion or any of those other identifiers that we might have. Another way that you can be inclusive as a life coach is being inclusive in your marketing. And this is something that I really am passionate about. So when you are marketing yourself as a coach, maybe you are using or showing different photos of people and different walks of life, and also just in the copy, the words that you use, right? Are you speaking to only just certain kinds of people? Are you, for example, if you are using images of people, are you only showing photos of people from one racial group? Because think about that. If you've got a web page or an Instagram profile and it's got a whole bunch of white people on it, how included do you think a person of color might feel noticing that it's just the only type of person that you're using in your marketing is just white people? Like, how do you think someone might feel? How included do you think they'd feel? Right? So you want to make sure that you are being inclusive. If you are talking about love and relationships, if that's your focus as a coach, are you speaking to just heterosexual relationships where it's a man and a woman? Again, if you're having photos online, are you just showing heterosexual relationships? Are you also looking to support people who have same-sex relationships? Because if so, then how could you make that clear in your marketing? Okay. Like one example, another way you can do this is if you are talking about relationships and let's say one coach says, are you a guy and you're so upset just, having terrible communication with your wife, right? That singles out, that just like pushes away all people who have same-sex relationships. So instead of just focusing on a man who's married to a woman, you might say partner. You might use the term partner. Are you a man that's struggling with your partner, right? Hear the difference? If you use the word partner, then using the term wife or woman. So it's about making sure that you are including people with your marketing. So that's another tip that you can use. Now, when it comes to even selling your coaching, there's ways that you can be inclusive. And I believe one of the best ways to do this is by offering financing to your potential clients. Now, if you've listened to many episodes of this podcast, you know that one of the top strategies that we teach our coaches on how to grow their business is by selling high-ticket premium coaching packages. And that just means selling your coaching for $3,000, $5,000, or $10,000 a package. Now, obviously, when you're selling your coaching at that level, you're going to attract a different caliber of person. You're going to attract people that want that deeper investment in themselves, that higher transformation, and they're looking to do that deep work. Now, the question often comes up of, well, are you also just selling your coaching to really rich people? Because that's not being so inclusive, right? And that's a very valid point. So one of the ways that you can be inclusive in even your offerings is you can offer financing. And this is something that we offer coaches who enroll in the academy. Sometimes our prospective students are shocked when they learn this, because even though we are not a cheap program, we're a 5-figure investment, our students are able to enroll for a very affordable monthly payment of like $300 or $400 a month, depending on some factors like your credit score. So it makes our coaching training program very accessible. Okay, so the accessibility is something that makes your coaching more inclusive. So when you are offering high ticket programs, it would be not just business savvy, it would also be more inclusive of you to offer financing, which is when you're able to offer your potential clients flexibility in how they can afford your program. So instead of needing to invest the full payment at once, maybe they're able to have some kind of monthly payment that is able to work within their budget, okay? So it helps make your coaching accessible to people of different income brackets. And as I shared before, you can still charge high ticket and offer funding, so that way you're able to really attract that person looking for the deep transformation, still be very well resourced as a coach, and also make your coaching so darn accessible to people where it's just a no-brainer for them to still work with you. Now, when you're inside the academy, we will show you exactly how to set up funding and funding options for your clients. So at least right now, I just want you to be aware of it and consider it. But inside the academy, we'll help you know what to sell your coaching for, and also how to make it accessible and offer funding options for your potential clients. Okay, so that is another strategy you can use to be inclusive as a coach. Now, here's another big one. Do not try to coach someone on ways they can tolerate discrimination or racism. Now, this is very big. Coaching is never intended, like real powerful coaching, it is never intended to undermine or dismiss discrimination of any sort, okay? It is never meant to help someone just reframe or think on the bright side. And it's never meant to gaslight a client into thinking that they are the problem because it's just their thoughts that are the issue. When you have a client who is experiencing discrimination, and that is the problem that they're wanting coaching around, do not use coaching tools to help your client just change their perspective and make them think that they are the issue. Okay? You never want to tell a client, well, it's just your thinking, right? When someone is experiencing discrimination of any sort, then that is something that you don't want. That is not acceptable. And you want to support your client in being able to get out of that situation or find a solution to that. And, find a way that if it's a person involved that's discriminating against them, finding a way for them to either remove themselves from that situation or educate that person, whatever it might be. Every situation is going to be a little bit different, but do not use coaching tools to just help your client shift their perspective on the situation. You want to help your client be proactive and also address the discrimination head on rather than avoid it or dance around it, okay? So that's really big when you're coaching. You want to support your client in facing discrimination head on if that's what they're going through, rather than like tiptoe around it or avoid it. Another strategy for being inclusive as a coach is using gender neutral language in your marketing. So this could be making little shifts, but it could have a big difference, little shifts in your language. So for example, a lot of people, they'll say guys to refer to a group of people. They'll say, hey guys, or hey ladies and gentlemen, stuff like that. So instead of saying that, just say folks, or hey everybody, or hey y'all, or hey team, or hey listeners, whatever it might be. All right, so this is a lot deeper topic, and there's certain other nuances that language, your language can be altered around to make the way you express yourself more inclusive. And now I know that sometimes people get very worried about this because they're worried about offending someone. And I know in our culture today, it could feel like it's so difficult to keep up. And it is, so our culture and our language changes so quickly. And here's what I want you to know. I want you to know that it's okay if you mess up, because you are going to mess up, right? You are going to say things that you might not say the appropriate word at certain cases. And I want you to just be open as a coach. Just be open. If you've got, we've had in the past some of our students who identified as non-binary. And sometimes these students, if someone was to misgender them, call that student he or she, and they prefer to go by the pronoun they, then we've had our own students educate other coaches in our program on how it is that they identify and how it is they want to be referred to. And it's not about you taking that so personally and feeling like you're a terrible person for, having slip-ups like that. It's just about the way you learn and the way that you adapt to your clients. All of your clients, they're going to have different nuances. They're going to have different ways of expressing themselves, of identifying. And as long as you can be open and be willing to listen and not try to criticize or correct them, but just being open to learning new things, then you're going to be fine. You're going to do great. So be graceful with yourself as a coach. Be willing to learn. Be willing to listen to people who have different perspectives from your own. It's not about you needing to agree. I want to emphasize this too, because some people think that this is a big political thing. It's really not. It's not about you agreeing with your client. Whatever your views are around certain things, you don't have to agree with any of your clients and how it is that they identify and how it is that they live their life. It's just about having empathy for another human being's experience. That's all that this is about. So language evolves, culture evolves, identity evolves, and just go on that journey, evolve with it, adapt with it, be willing to learn, be willing to listen. You don't have to agree. It's just about empathizing. And then I want to end by talking about having clients and people you might work with who have different learning styles. Okay, so this is another area of inclusion to be aware of, because you'll have some clients, especially if you're doing group coaching or if you're doing group workshops, you will have some clients that might be more introverted. You might have some clients who have different learning styles. So we've had, for example, some students who enroll in the academy and they say, I'm really introverted and I just don't like being in large groups of people and it's overwhelming. So one of the ways that we make our program inclusive for someone who's more introverted or maybe just has social anxiety is we have a very intimate classroom size. I remember when I went through coach training, I was in this room with so many 40, 50, 60 people, and I'm an introvert myself, and I had a lot of anxiety come up just being in such a large group of people. I didn't feel so comfortable raising my hand. So that is one of the reasons why we have a very intimate classroom size where we don't have more than a dozen people in a classroom. Oftentimes it is even fewer than that. So all of our students get all of their questions answered. They feel safe to express themselves. And that's ultimately what you really want. You want your clients to feel safe to express themselves and feel safe to transform, right? There's one thing I want you to also take away from this. It's knowing that one of the ingredients to transformation is safety, right? When someone feels safe. So you want it to be a space where they feel not just a safe space for them to feel comfortable, but also a strong space for them to feel like they can really push themselves out of their comfort zone and challenge themselves to grow. So it's about having a space of safe transformation. So we've also had students who enroll in the academy that have mentioned that they have a different learning style. For example, you might have clients who mention that they have ADHD. And what that just means for some people is that they have a different way of learning and processing information. And that's why it's really helpful when you are coaching, especially if you're doing workshops or group coaching programs, that you have various ways for people to take in your resources, apply your information, and also adapting your programs to fit people of different learning styles. So one of the things that we do is we record all of our live training calls. So if someone ever felt like there was any kind of stimulation that came up for them, if they have ADHD or something like that, then they're able to comfortably remove themselves or take a break from the classroom and catch up through those recordings. So that way they're not feeling like they're falling behind or that they're doing something wrong. So the approach that I've always taken in my coaching business is I get curious. So when I am learning about someone who has a background different from my own, a different learning style, they come from whatever kind of different background, I just get curious. I let them teach me. And I just say, okay, so how can I best coach you? What do I need to know so that way I could be the most effective coach for you? And I listen, I take notes, and I love to understand how people function in the world. And there's so many different types of people you're going to meet as a coach. And I think that's what makes this work so incredible. So these are some strategies for you to be more inclusive as a coach. So think about, given these strategies, what is one of the strategies that you can begin to implement into your coaching practice? What's something that you can do? So I'll give you a recap of what I covered. One is to be aware of your own stereotypes and biases that you might have. Another is to be inclusive in your marketing, in the words that you use, in the pictures that you use. Third is to offer financing options to your clients. So there's flexible ways they can work with you. Fourth is to make sure that you don't coach someone on ways to tolerate discrimination or racism, but really, if that comes up, you want to help them find ways to deal with that head on. Next is to use gender neutral language in your business. So making sure that you're using language that's inclusive of all. And next is to be aware of how you can support different learning styles, like introverted students, socially anxious students, ADHD. So that way you can create a learning environment when you're doing group programs. So that way people feel safe to contribute and safe to share. Okay, so that's what I got on how to be inclusive as a life coach. I hope you enjoy this episode. Of course, this is just we're just scratching the surface here. So, just know I'm giving you big picture insights. There's ways we go deeper into it, into our DEI training inside the Academy. And as a reminder, we are raising our tuition the coming new year. So book your admissions call with our team. If you have any questions, we'd love to hear from you. We'd love to see how we can help you hit your goals as a coach. Thank you again for tuning into this episode, and I'll see you in the next one. Hey, would you like access to powerful coaching tools you can use on yourself and clients right away? For being a listener of the podcast, I'm giving you a VIP guest pass to get a sneak peek into my coach training program. Inside, you'll learn our coaches' secret tool they use to transform their clients' lives. And you'll also get a training on how to launch a coaching business. Just head over to www.thrivingcoachacademy.com/VIP to get started. I'll see you on the inside.